So I've got the Xbox Series X, the LG C10, the Samsung Q90t, and the new racing game Dirt 5. Let's load it up and see how these two TVs look with apps, movies, and games on the Xbox Series X. What's up, it's B the Installer, here to give you some practical information about TVs and home theater. And today it's the Xbox Series X. And there can't be anything more practical than the Xbox Series X and how it looks and plays on two of the best TVs, the Samsung Q90t and the LG C10. And then I'm going to show you a direct comparison of the LG C10 and the Samsung Q90t, showing a quick setup, going over a UHD Blu-ray in game mode, and then showing you some gaming on Dirt 5. And finally, I'm going to give you my pick on the best gaming TV for 2020 between these two TVs. And next week, I'm actually going to have two OLEDs and two LED TVs up on the TV wall with the X Series X. So if you want to see videos like that, definitely subscribe and definitely hit the notification bell, set it to all so you know when I upload that video. And make sure to smash the like button if you like this video, when you find it worthy, and if not, smash the dislike button, smash one of them. So on September 22nd, 8 a.m. in the morning, like many people, we were up with multiple phones and computers trying to pre-order Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. And with 1% left on his phone, my son procured one on Amazon.com. And we were thinking, since Amazon is fantastic with logistics, one of the biggest companies in the world, should be no problem, right? They promised a pre-order, should be there. But then November 9th came around, and instead of getting a shipping email, we got this weird email telling us that we could either cancel the order or just suck it up and wait until possibly the end of the year to get our Xbox Series X. But finally, 2 weeks later, it shipped, it's here, and now we can move on. I know the demand for both the X Series and the PlayStation 5 are incredibly high, and there isn't much product left. So good luck in getting one. I hope you guys get one soon, and this video helps you out. So as you can see, and you probably already know, the Xbox Series X is a massive rectangular box. And my thoughts were, where in the hell are we gonna put this thing? We had a wall mount for the 1S, but we move that so often that the wall mount never gets used. And I've seen that they actually make wall brackets for this thing, and I'm like, no. I don't think this is really something you can hide behind a TV. In the end, it's about what it does for you, so we're really just all gonna have to find a place to put it, right? So initially, I fired up the Xbox Series X on the LG C10, and the interface is basically the same as the Xbox One S. So I was familiar with it and started down the path of learning what it gives me over the 1S besides gaming. And right off the bat, you can check out the TV specs in the console and see that everything is checked but the Dolby Vision. But that's not correct, right? Because the LG C10 can do Dolby Vision. Well, it's actually not checked because I actually have AMD FreeSync enabled. And one of the trade-offs for the LG C10 only having 40 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1 is that you get AMD FreeSync or you get Dolby Vision. You can't have both. But the generic VRR is just fine for this, so it's not a big deal to actually turn off AMD FreeSync, get the Dolby Vision, so when the games come out in Dolby Vision, you'll have that. And since we're talking Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, I actually wanted to make sure that Dolby Atmos was working on my Sonos Arc sound system, so I popped on the app and saw that it wasn't giving us Dolby Atmos yet. So that's actually not a big deal. All you have to do is download the Dolby Access app on the Xbox Series X itself, and in a matter of seconds you'll be able to add the Atmos. Now you don't actually have to pay for anything. They do prompt you to pay if you want to get it for headphones, but this is just for the home theater, and for that access it's actually free. Once I downloaded that app, I returned to the Sonos app and saw that Dolby Atmos was now enabled, and it has been ever since. Back to Dolby Vision. Now this isn't a big deal for Samsung because Samsung actually doesn't support Dolby Vision. And to be honest, I don't think it needs it because with HDR10 and HDR10 Plus, the Samsung is plenty vibrant. But Dolby Vision is definitely useful on the LG C10 as it doesn't have the same brightness level. So I really like how good the TV looks in Dolby Vision. Well, this was a bit confusing because the Xbox Series X does support Dolby Vision from the apps, and eventually it will support Dolby Vision from games. And the TV supports Dolby Vision as we saw in the 4K specs, but it wouldn't play a UHD Blu-ray on Dolby Vision, only HDR. And I did a bit of research because I downloaded the Access app, so I thought it would be good, but it was actually HD TV Test Vincent Tao's video that was the best clarification on why, and I'm not gonna go too far down the rabbit hole, but streaming a game in Dolby Vision is processed differently than Dolby Vision from a UHD disc. And it'll still even read a Dolby Vision disc, it'll just play it in HDR10 or HDR10 Plus. So that's a bit of a bummer for those of you who thought you could actually use this as your Dolby Vision playing 4K Blu-ray player, but you can still get Dolby Vision from apps like Vudu, and you still should be able to get it for games when it's available in the future. So because the Series X can't actually play the Dolby Vision on the LG C10, and because it's moot because the Samsung doesn't support Dolby Vision, we can just check out the 4K UHD version of John Wick 3 on disc in HDR and see how good it looks on both TVs, and I'll actually do this in game mode. And the reason for that is because motion and picture quality gets beat up a bit in game mode for the fast response. And motion is motion, so to kill two birds with one stone, and because I've seen this movie enough at its best, I'll get a feel for what it looks like in game mode, the picture quality, and then I can relay that to you. And it's apparent that both TVs obviously take a little bit of a hit in game mode regarding motion, color, and black levels. But overall, HDR still looks okay on both TVs. I mean, this is a great movie in 4K HDR. And this scene with the giant walls of glass and the LED screens is one of my favorites. I'm sure many of you have seen it and would agree it's pretty legit. But the handling of the motion and overall picture quality is better on the LG C10. I can feel that Samsung has more of a difference from watching this movie in cinema versus game mode. It definitely looks more herky-jerky, and I was getting a little bit dizzy watching the Q90t. Now the logical thing to do is just make sure the game console is not in game mode when watching non-gaming content. And this can be done by unchecking the ALLM or game mode feature, or you can also do it on the TV settings itself. And once you're out of ALLM for this movie, it feels back to normal. The Samsung regains its stability over the picture quality and is much closer to the C10 right as John Wick finishes the scene. But I'm sure you're not only interested in how well it handles John Wick on my Xbox Series X, so let's get to gaming. So before I started flashing Dirt 5 on these two TVs side by side, I wanted to show you that you can calibrate your TV by utilizing patterns on the Xbox to go in and calibrate your TV settings themselves. And you can also calibrate your gaming experience for the specific TV with the calibration features in the console. It's pretty straightforward. They just run 3 little test patterns for HDR luminance. First, you check for minimum luminance by running a near black test pattern where you want to get the dark gray as close to black as you can but still make out the pattern. But on the other end, they have bright test patterns. One with a small window where you want to just barely clip the pattern so that all squares are the same brightness, and the same thing on a full bright screen with the same smaller pattern in the middle. And that one's going to help to see if your TV has an auto brightness limiter. It may change the highlights a bit. So check it on the small window and the large window. Now both of these TVs were different when doing this. The dark box in the Samsung was super bright and I had to turn it way down. And then on the bright screen it was like blinding, but I got it done. But on the other end, the LG low luminance was basically perfect. And on the higher end, I had to increase it to match the maximum luminance. But it's pretty easy and pretty much anyone can do this. So when I finished the Samsung's calibration pattern, it actually looked a lot better than it did pre-calibration, but the LG C10 was basically the same. So I'm not sure what that really tells you about both the picture qualities, but we'll find out in the end. So let's get to the fun part of comparing these TVs directly, and then we're gonna also talk about, is the Xbox Series X a big upgrade over the X1S? So right off the bat, we notice that there is a massive difference when it comes to the Xbox Series X over the Xbox One S, and that should be obvious. First, in downloading installation of games, it was extremely fast on the Xbox Series X. We downloaded Fortnite and Minecraft and other kids games in a matter of minutes. The loading of the Xbox Series X was 5 or 10 times faster than the One S. It was literally 2 or 3 seconds versus the 30 seconds we're used to, where the kids will take a breath and ask for food. And when that happens on the One S, you know that they're waiting for it to load. But since we have the Series X, there's been very little downtime. Now the game Dirt 5 was actually 76 gigabytes on the Series X, so that took a little bit to download, but once again, it loads extremely fast. And the amplified edition additional info was like 10 megabytes, and I'm not sure what I got with that, but I'm sure I'll find out, and I'm sure you guys can let me know. But once I got into the game, the visuals were stunning. This game has gotten some heat for not working that great after launch, and I can understand that. Simply loading it can cause the One S to crash. Or when you get a notification that someone is online, crash. When you start a race, crash. But the game has worked flawlessly on the Series X. And when you get into the gameplay, there is just so much detail. And there are 2 modes in this game for the X Series X, which are to prioritize the frame rate or to prioritize the picture quality. And I didn't notice a ton here, but I've heard people like Digital Foundry talking about how the X Series X actually has similar resolution to the X Series S, and that the PS5 has much higher quality when you put it in 4K 120. And they actually think it might be a bug with the game and that developers didn't intend for this. But I'm not sure if I've already gotten that update or not, because to be honest, it looks way better than the One S, and I don't see much loss of detail at all when it's in either mode. So let's get into a race and pick these two apart and find out which one looks better. And it's apparent to me that the luminance situation that was going on in the calibration is still something showing up in the gameplay. I mean, after you reduce the brightness on the Samsung Q90t, because it was literally giving me a headache, there seems to be a legit difference between how they look on screen. Just on this graphic alone, you can see the race matrix can illustrate the differences all by itself. As you can see, there are darker dots on the LG C10 and the Samsung Q90t, they're much lighter in comparison. But the white lines in the objective area on the right are much more defined in the Samsung Q90t, and they're darker in the LG C10. This is sort of a microcosm of the OLED versus QLED situation, which I made a video about you should check out. The brighter QLED versus the better contrast OLED. But enough with the philosophy. The differences continue when playing the game. The Samsung Q90t just has a brighter look overall, and it has a little bit more detail in the scene here. But does it look blown out to you? I noticed that the LG C10 is a bit darker overall, and the contrast and black levels are feeling a little bit more palatable. I'm not sure everyone will agree with me, but it's definitely amazing on both TVs, and it has a lot to do with the Series X, because it does not look like that on either TV with the 1S. On the 1S, the detail in the courses and cars and motion is significantly worse. And it was something that we found out in a hurry as we bounced back and forth playing these on both displays on both systems over the course of a few days. But the Samsung seemed to suffer the worst when playing Dirt 5 on the Xbox One S. That is, when we actually got it working. But since we want to talk about a large, fast game working on an Xbox, let's get back to the Series X. And while I drift around this turn, I do want to point out the downsides playing games on both of these TVs. So while the LG C10 does have slightly darker tones in the shadows, I don't feel like it's necessarily suffering from black crush in this game, because there's so much detail, and I set the low luminance on the black levels, so I feel it's kind of how it's meant to be. And it feels to me like the Samsung is just a slightly brighter version of the picture more than the LG is crushing anything. So I guess I wouldn't even call it LG Black Crush for gaming, but I would just say it's a bit darker but detailed. What do you guys think? Do you prefer one over the other? Let me know in the comments. But on the flip side, the LG doesn't have the overall brightness that Samsung has. Here the camera is exposed to the brighter Samsung at full brightness, and you can see how much darker the LG is. And this is just simply a show of max brightness on the Samsung side. But in gaming, I've come to the conclusion that most OLED gamers probably already had, which is that you really don't need all that brightness. I know this because I've actually seen hundreds of comments about this, and it's true. The LG C10 can get plenty bright for gaming even in the day because of the amazing picture quality the Xbox Series X is providing. And in regarding either of the bright and vibrant screens, I saw the OLED has perfectly white picture, and the Samsung has a bit of an issue here. It's the dirty screen effect, and I didn't notice the DSC on this TV until now. And I don't think it's something that you always need to go home and test your TV about, because a lot of people try to find flaws in their TV instead of just enjoy them. And to be honest, it makes me pretty happy when people just enjoy the TV they have. Unless they come troll my video because of brand loyalty. That can be pretty annoying. Anyways, I hadn't worried, and that was because I hadn't used this TV to game like this, where there's a bright sky and you move left and right off of center, where every imperfection of the screen sticks out like a sore thumb, and DSC becomes a problem. And if you thought dirty screen effect was bad for sports, it's similarly exposed for racing games like this. And when I was looking at it, I started running into the walls. I mean, it's not the only reason I'm hitting the walls, but there's nothing like this on the LG C10. It actually makes me feel a bit dirty. Again, this is just one factor, and many people will never notice the DSC on these kind of TVs because they're watching HDR movies or they're playing darker games that don't expose this. We have been playing Apex Legends and Fortnite and other games, and we hadn't noticed it up until this point. But it is something to think about. So I want to give you my opinion on the three different things. First, the Xbox Series X. It's clear it's a massive upgrade over the Xbox One X or the One S. Now the size, it's a bit much, but the design is Art Deco maybe? I don't know. Not the way I would have designed it, but it's more about what it does for us. It loads incredibly fast, and the hardware and the OS and the gameplay is impeccably smooth so far. I think it's pretty obvious to say that it's a good buy. I know there are things to come like Dolby Vision gameplay, and many of the 4K 120 and VRR issues still need to be worked out, but it looks and plays great. And as for the TVs, I don't have a ton of complaints for the Samsung Q90t. It's a very bright TV, and everything connectivity-wise worked on the TV without issue. It snaps in and out of game mode, and of course in game mode you lose a bit of contrast, but the superior graphics of the game made it barely noticeable. Much less noticeable than the same game on the One S. The DSC is something people will have to determine on their own. And as for peak brightness, I think if you're gaming in a bright room with a lot of windows and your eyes can handle that all day, you'll find the Samsung Q90t is one of the best QLEDs out there for gaming. As far as the LG C10, I have been right down the middle with this product. Initially, I made a glowing review about the LG C10, and then in the best 4K TV of 2020, I named the LG C10 my favorite TV. But then I also made a video showing the things I didn't like, which of course YouTube promoted the hell out of it, so people think I hate the TV. And finally, I felt the Sony A8H had a slightly better picture quality than the LG C10 when I was fine-tooth combing them when I wasn't really talking about gaming. But nothing has changed about the LG C10 that I own and actually enjoy quite a bit. It has exceptional picture quality, it has exceptional HDR, and as I've stated many times, the better the source that you feed it, the better it looks. So when it comes to the Xbox Series X and high-speed gaming, it looks incredible. It's like a match made in, well, China, but still, it's awesome. And this racing game Dirt 5 looks amazing on it. Even with the abnormally lit scenes going into a bright sunset or through a super dark tunnel, I never lose picture quality with the C10. And for those who want to talk burn-in, well, which is worse? The potential for burn-in down the road or looking at a dirty screen for the entirety of your TV's life. So I just want to state on the record, I think the LG C10 is clearly the best gaming TV in 2020. Now, if you have a bright room or you're a big fan of the peak brightness or the Samsung product, that's a decision for you. Both TVs are fantastic for gaming. So really it's gonna come down to, again, if you're in a bright room or a dark room, which is gonna be best for you. And lastly, I really enjoy Dirt 5. Even though I'm not that great at it, hopefully you're better. So I hope this information helped you. Smash the like button on your way out, it really helps. Make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you can see the video, 2 LEDs versus 2 OLEDs. It'll be right here. And just remember, with my help, you can be the installer.